I am Slick Nick, and you're watching this video because you want to know if you are going to go bald. It's a very popular question on the internet. I realize that as a content creator, and now I am serving you. I am helping you find answers you can't find anywhere else, because what is truth anyway? On the internet, people say all kinds of things. People often tell you what you want to hear. And let's start out with that topic before I really get into it, because I want you to be psychologically where you need to be before you hear the truth on whether or not you're gonna go bald. So recently, I made a video called Predicting Male Pattern Baldness. Younger men are reluctant to admit that general rules do exist. So I wanna start there. That's a very important part to start, because as we look into that concept, and thanks to someone in the comments on that video, they help me know the term I was looking for. That's survivorship bias. And here's what it means. The logical error of concentrating on the people or things that made it in the past through some selection process and overlooking those that did not. So in other words, when you already determine in your mind what you think the answer is going to be, it's easier for you to ignore the general rule and instead focus on the exception to the rule, because you're hoping that you can be the exception. And by all means, I'm a big believer in exceptions to the rule. I think they're good because they help prove the general rule to be true. So with that being said, before I get into this, I want to remind you, you are going to be tempted to try to think of an exception to the rule as I go through these 5. You're going to be tempted to focus on only one of these 5 things and then therefore ignore all the rest. So here's been your 2-minute disclaimer for this video. While you will be tempted to focus on the exception to the rule, or to focus on only one of these rules, or to focus on none of them and make that, it's going to be tempting. But stick with me, because I've been doing this a long time. Let's go through them. Let's go through this is the 2021 version of Nick Shell's 5 ways to predict if you're going to go bald. Let's start with the first one. A photo of yourself at age 1. I don't care what your hair looked like at age 2. I don't care about 6 months. I don't care about newborn baby. I care about 1 year old. Most of you can ask your mother, hey, can I see a photo of myself at 1 year old? Because chances are your mother has a photo of yourself at age 1. It's a very popular year for your mother to have taken your picture. You look at your hair at age 1. It's a projection of your hair at age 35. And that's very important. This is a projection of you at age 35. This is something I've discovered on my own. The way I came up with it is because I know that when I was born, my mom had heard that if you double your height from when you're 2 years old, that's a projection of you as a full-grown adult. It worked for me, it worked for my sister. I've done this for my kids. It looks like it's gonna be correct for them. Now, that's another general rule, and it doesn't mean it's always true that you double the inches of your height when you're age 2, and that's your adult height. It's not always true, but it's largely true. And I thought, there's gotta be some kind of sweet spot for predicting hair loss using that same principle. And I was able to figure it out. You can look up videos on here where at age 35, 5 years ago, I showed side by side a photo of myself at age 1, and that's where I keep up with that theory. So, listen carefully. A photo of yourself at age 1 is a projection of you at age 35. As far as your hairline, as far as if your hair is thin on top, it's a projection. And again, don't get caught up in survivorship bias. Okay, this is only one of the 5 things. Now, here's the concept too that's built into that. As far as you going bald, you're more likely to go bald before the age of 35 and not after the age of 35. I'm 40, so it's much less likely that in the next couple years, I'm just gonna lose all this, what I do have still on top. It's very less likely. But between the ages of 18 and 35, it's much more likely. I would even say, maybe even 30, you're almost safe at 30, but you still got those 5 more years. So there we go. Projection of you of age 35, because that's the magical age that your DNA determines whether you're gonna go bald. It's not about you preventing hair loss or causing it. You were born with DNA. Okay, so that's the most important one of these. What did your hair look like at age 1? Okay, next question you want to ask yourself, how old am I now? Do the math. How many more years until you're 35? If you're 30, okay, just 5 more years before you'll know the answer. If you're 18, you still got basically half your life before you're going to know the answer to that. So do the math on that and think, how many more years will I be wondering this? Because I'm telling you, at age 35, you're not going to be asking yourself that anymore. Mainly because you're focused on, other things in life, like being an adult. But ultimately, when you are 35, that's pretty much what you're dealing with. So people look at my hairline, they watch my videos and they, oh, well, you've got that V going on, you've got that's your hairline, so that's implying that you are going to go bald. Well, if I was 23, it probably would mean that. It'd be more likely to mean that. You could be 23 and keep this forever, but you'd have to look at all 5 of the rules. So, projection of yourself based on your photo of age 1. Look at your hair now. Okay, so that's number 2. How much hair do you have now? And compare that to age 35. How many years left do you have this hairline to work with? Okay, so those are the first 2. Number 3, at what age could you grow a full connected beard? Mustache connects down here, sideburns connect. At what age were you? Okay, if you still can't, then that would be in your favor for not going bald, because I have noticed, and you've noticed this too, men who typically have more body hair, not just facial hair, but body hair in general, are more likely to go bald quicker. You can look at men of Asian descent, for example, Japanese men. Much less likely to go bald on top, but typically don't have much body hair. Same thing with Korean men, for example, and I know that because I've spent time in Asia. I observed it. That's part of how I came up with this. So, if you were able to grow a full connected beard by the time you graduated high school, more likely to go bald in your early 20s. If you're 28 now and still can't grow a beard, then you're much less likely to go bald. There you go. So, the sooner you can grow a beard, the more likely you are to go bald. Number 4, your ethnicity, which I just kind of mentioned that just now. If you are of Asian descent, and by Asian, I mean the American version of what we mean by Asian. I mean Japanese, Korean, Thai, etc. Then you're less likely to go bald sooner, because you're also less likely to have a whole lot of body hair and facial hair. Okay, and then lastly, this is the new one I've added in for the 2021 version of this. So the last one is gray hair. If you have some gray hair in your late teens or early 20s, you're less likely to go bald. I've observed this. It's quite a thing. So for me, the only gray hair I have is my chin. But on my head, I don't have much at all. And I'm 40 years old. Okay? So, but I also have this hairline. I've noticed the guys who have more of a straight across hairline, or virtually no hair loss, no thinning at all, typically they go grayer sooner. Typically. So there you go. There's your 5 ways to predict if you're going to go bald. Let me close this video out by doing one more disclaimer. You have to look at all 5 things. Don't just focus on one. Look at all 5. Look at what the best is. 3 out of 5. Okay, you're more likely or less likely based on what I said. Don't get caught up on things I didn't mention. I never talked about your dad's hairline or your mother's father hair, whether he went bald. I never mentioned that, so there's no reason for you to mention that. There's also no reason for you to leave a comment asking me if you're going to go bald, because it just provided you the treasure map. Yes, the treasure map. So what, if anything, you would leave a comment saying, "Thank you, Nick. I am now enlightened. Here are the answers to the 5 things. And most importantly, Nick, here's the answer whether I'm going to go bald, Nick. I'm telling you, I'm not asking you, Nick. I'm telling you because you provided me the treasure map." In conclusion, you will be tempted by survivorship bias, focusing on only one of these things or none of these things or the exception of the rule. It's going to be tempting, but focus on all 5. And that is a photo of yourself at age 1, projection of age 35. How much hair do you have now? Compare that to age 35. How soon could you grow a beard? The sooner, the more likely you go bald on top. Your ethnicity, if you're of Asian descent, you're less likely, or Native American, because I am, then you're less likely to go bald. If you have gray hair sooner, you're more likely to not go bald. There you go. Now, you've heard all of my disclaimers, all my rules. This is a test. Can you pass the test? You're Your comments belong right here.